what are you doing in between your board meetings? This is the most crucial time for board directors, the actual period between the board meetings, between the committee meetings. What are the activities that you're doing to ensure that you are fulfilling your director duties? And I can assure you that if you are sort of very new to the game, you may make a very incorrect assumption that you don't do very much in between, meeting A and meeting B. I am always constantly monitoring. I think it's part of your core director duties to be assessing, monitoring, calculating risk, how is the strategy going with the business, and to really be having a finger on the pulse. And I use a lot of tools to ensure that I stay up to date, because I never just rely on the single source of truth from the company, whether that be the finance department, whether that be the sales and marketing department or the CEO. I like to have a broad view of how that business is traveling in terms of its financial, legal, health, and where some of the risks can appear. And of course, how are they going in terms of business growth and execution of business strategy. Some of the tools I use include CreditorWatch, which is a monitoring financial tool which links into the ASX and the ASIC departments, enabling you to, in real time, track if there are any legal issues on foot, whether there's any form of financial delinquency, and how the banks are viewing the credit rating of the business. And so I'm constantly monitoring. So, for example, I'm on a board of a business at the moment, and the business rating, the credit rating for the business, this is the rating that the banks would see, has decreased. And that means that maybe the bank's perception is there's a higher risk rating associated with that business. Now, I want to be across that because everything's interrelated, whether that means we may have more difficulty securing bank loans in the future, whether our overdraft might be curtailed, whether that means when we're trading business, we've got to sort of pay, cash on delivery scenarios. All sorts of things can be implicated by the actual credit rating of the business. And of course, I'm really monitoring that we are in fact managing our cash flow correctly. We're paying our bills on time, when they fall due. All those kind of things I'm monitoring. I don't rely on the CFO to give me this information. I like to have the external checks, because this is how a bank would be monitoring our business. This is how external creditors would be monitoring our business. Anybody who's looking at giving us supplier terms, they will be monitoring how we are perceived in the market in terms of risk ratings. So I like to look at my CreditorWatch account, and I recommend for all board directors, you should at the very least have some sort of monitoring in place on the financial side of things. It also would give you some visibility into if there are any formal legal matters on foot and if things are being registered where that's concerned. And for bigger organisations where there could be a lot of moving parts, you would want to be across that. I'm also monitoring just how the business is being perceived in terms of social media, the press, the Google, the online presence of the organisation. So I set up Google Alerts. I'm monitoring them obviously in a social media sense. It's amazing how quickly things can get out of hand. We had a scenario on a particular board where the CEO made some controversial comments in the market, and it blew up on social media. And we need to very quickly as a board react and get a good sense of what people were saying and what the community was indicating with regards to that individual. So I'm constantly monitoring. And then I'm also looking at what employees are saying. So I would have tools set up like Glassdoor, for example, which is where employees who are either employed by the business or have just left the business leave reviews about the business. Any sort of mechanism I can get hold of that's going to give me a finger on the pulse of what's going on in that business, not just what's being presented in the board papers. And then I'm also going to be, between board meetings, catching up with my fellow board members, using this time to discuss matters We may have an agenda on foot with regards to a committee we're working on together. There's nothing that can replace catching up with your fellow board members one-on-one, building that rapport, soundboarding thoughts, ideas, understanding where people are coming from. It's those sidebar conversations that can be incredibly helpful. Now, I view all of that as part of my responsibility as a board member. Now, I've got people coming to me all day, every day, saying that they want to take on more and more board seats, and they've got a full-time day job. They've already got 2 board seats, and they're coming to me for more and more board seats. And I'm like trying to figure out how they're going to fit this in, because all of this takes time. And this is the real crux of it. You've got to allocate time as a board director to be constantly across the brief, really understanding the financial, the legal health, the corporate setting that the business is operating in. So there's no kind of sit back and relax and, wait till the next board meeting to pick up on what's going on or wait for the board papers. I'm constantly monitoring. And of course, if anything was to crop up that concerned me or was an issue, I would then follow up with the CEO or the CFO. Obviously, I might loop the chair into the discussion if that's required. But, reality is you have a responsibility and there's no excuse not to be across the brief. So take it seriously. Figure out what you need to really understand that particular business and what it's operating, how it's operating from an IT perspective, a marketing perspective, a sales perspective, and put your tools in place that will help make your life easier to do that monitoring. But it's going to make a huge difference. Tell me in the comments what you do in between board meetings to stay across your brief.